Paul Blanch is a nuclear engineer with more than 50 years of experience with regulatory issues and safety concerns at nuclear power plants. As a safety advocate, his goal is to make certain that nuclear plants are operated safely and in compliance with the law. Mr. Blanch has extensive experience with the decommissioning of nuclear power plants. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Paul Blanch.
Thank you and good evening. As a nuclear engineer with over 50 years of experience, I would say that the San Onofre nuclear station, or SONGS, is probably the most dangerous nuclear power plant in the USA. I'm saying this as a lifetime advocate of safe nuclear power. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission's, or NRC, mission is to protect the public and the environment. That's their sole mission. This mission is accomplished allegedly by compliance and enforcement with the federal regulations. I've been a qualified reactor operator, instructor of reactor theory and operations, and a qualified nuclear electrician, and more than 4 years of formal nuclear education. Additionally, I received a BS degree in engineering and was a professional engineer in the state of California. I have participated in many nuclear decommissioning boards, or refer to them as DOBs, in the Northeast in the United States. The NRC's Office of the Inspector General has issued at least 3 investigative reports over the years validating my interactions with the NRC. All of these OIG reports substantiated my contentions that the NRC provided false information to me and to the public. The NRC continues this practice, and we have been meeting with the OIG on an ongoing basis about the issues we will be discussing today. The OIG reports can be located on the NRC's website. I'd just like to mention that we have personally met with Robert Vitale, who is the Inspector General and was appointed by the President. I will be citing specific regulations from the Federal Code of Regulations, I'll refer to as CFR, but will not burden the audience with specific and confusing terms such as 10 CFR 72.122, parentheses, L, etc. These can all be found on the NRC's website or Google. Next slide, please. Now, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or the NRC, has a responsibility and a mission to protect the public and the environment. That's their sole mission. But I'm sorry to say that's not happening here, and everyone in Southern California needs to know that and know what the problems are. That is my goal tonight. Next slide, please. So the question before us tonight is, how can we make San Onofre decommissioning safer? We will never make it completely safe, but there are things we can do to make it safer than it is now. And it's critical to do that before it's too late. Next slide. This is an overall photo taken from the south side of the plant. The major issues we're going to be talking about tonight are the potential flooding of San Onofre during a tsunami or major weather event, and the clear unaddressed issue of potential criticality, which I will explain later, a clear requirement of the regulations. We'll be talking about the failures of political communication after Fukushima accident, and the failure and the transparency of the NRC Southern California, or Edison, and Holtec, a subcontractor to Edison, about the true dangers of San Onofre. We're going to be talking about the retrievability, another federal requirement. We're going to be talking about the potential consequences should the NRC continue to ignore its regulations and congressional mandate. Next slide. Here are some pictures demonstrating the proximity of San Onofre to the ocean and the very likely possibility that in a severe storm or tsunami, The area where the spent fuel is currently located could become submerged in salt water from the Pacific. Keep in mind the facility is in an earthquake zone, so the idea of a tsunami is not remote. The wall that you see here is the only thing protecting the spent fuel containment area. This wall will not even protect against normal wave actions. Last month, I was fortunate enough to visit the Canary Islands, and this photo was taken of a seawall designed to protect a small harbor in a small city of about 50,000 people. It's about 12 feet thick at the top, 50 feet thick at the bottom. This is also similar to the seawall at Fukushima, which unfortunately did not consider the potential magnitude of historic tsunamis. Next photo. This is a photo from the owners of the plant, Edison. Shows the area that would be flooded in the event of a major weather event. As you can see, the area clearly marked is exactly where the spent fuel is presently being stored. So everyone knows this is a problem. A storage facility may be flooded at an ever-increasing frequency with climate change. Edison submitted this photo under oath to the NRC in 2013, and it has never been supplemented or withdrawn. Next slide, please. Now, the NRC has decided that the possibility of a flood at San Onofre is not credible without ever defining what not credible means. So they don't have a plan for flooding. The NRC's own documentation actually says, quote, flooding is excluded as an initiating event, close quote. In spite of Edison's own analysis, and Holtec, the company subcontracted to Edison to decommission San Onofre, classifying its analysis of flood potential as proprietary information. How can information critical to the safety of millions of people be classified as proprietary? It appears that Edison is hiding and withholding vital information from the public and the government and elected officials. Next slide, please. Let me talk a few minutes about the way the spent fuel is currently stored and cooled at San Onofre and why it could be a major problem in the event of a flood. The canister containment device is designed to keep the spent fuel cool. Here's how it's designed to work. And I'm going to go off script a little bit and show the canister, which is the gray thing on the left. That's the canister. The whole system is referred to as a vertical ventilation module, and the canister is on the inside. And I want you to remember that the fuel level here is quite a bit below the top of the VVM. The 5/8-inch canisters, each containing more radioactive material than released from either Fukushima or Chernobyl, are located about 108 feet from the Pacific Ocean. During normal operation, the airflow enters the top as shown by the blue arrows and proceeds down the outside of the divider shell as shown. From there, it passes through small passages estimated to be about 4 inches in height at the bottom. And due to the heat, rises and discharges the heated air, thus cooling the canisters. The normal temperature on the outside of the canister, the gray matter we see here, is around 500 degrees. I expect the discharged air to be a few hundred degrees, but we do not have that information. I've described the operation of the cask and cooling during design and normal operations. It may function well in a dry, salt-free environment. However, San Onofre, the life expectancy is limited and carries only a 25 or 10-year warranty, as discussed by Charles. There's a problem, as acknowledged by Edison and Holtec, that flooding may occur under storm conditions and also due to the effect of tsunami. Either of these events will result in the flooding of these vertical ventilation modules. In this event, water, debris will inundate these modules, filling all cooling paths and module voids. Should this occur, Pacific seawater with about 3% salt will flood all the voids in these modules. As clearly stated by the NRC and Holtec, the water will actually assist with the cooling because convection will occur unless the bottom is blocked. When the water recedes, the seawater will rapidly boil off due to the heat of the spent fuel and the latent heat of the vertical ventilation models. In a few hours or minutes, all the water will be boiled off, leaving a few hundred pounds of solidified salt and other debris at the bottom, covering the airflow paths. And we've estimated the height of the salt, cake salt, which will be crusted and hard, will probably be in the range of 8 to 10 inches high. The salt will totally inhibit all cooling to the spent fuel. Edison states they can remove this blockage, but this statement is absolutely false, especially for 73 canisters. Edison has not acknowledged having procedures or equipment in place to remove blockages within 24 hours, as required by the legally binding technical specifications. This is not trivial and a very expensive endeavor, nor has the NRC required such equipment or training for these procedures. The loss of canister heat removal has been analyzed by Holtec and the NRC. However, it assumes that cooling will be restored to all 73 canisters within 24 hours, which cannot possibly be done. One cannot remove that blockage even within a day. So we're talking 73 days for potential increase in the consequences of an accident. The loss of heat removal for greater than 24 hours has never been analyzed and will result in exceeding fuel and canister design limits with unknown radiological consequences. It is also possible the material's design criticality could be damaged. And I want to go off script a little bit. Criticality is a major concern, which I'll get into, but there are plates with a proprietary name, Metamax, I believe it is, by Holtec. We have no idea what it's made of, but it's inserted in there along the fuel to absorb neutrons and prevent criticality. We have no idea what will happen to this neutron absorbing material. We have no data whatsoever. Next slide, please. The NRC has developed what they call a probabilistic risk assessment of dry cask storage system at a nuclear power plant. In this report, they project a dose of 360 millirems of radiation to the public, extending out to 1 mile. I know this is meaningless to most people. The maximum allowable dose to the public is 100 millirems. So we have a problem, and it means that everyone within a 1 mile radius would have to be relocated or some other protective action in a flooding event, just as they were at Fukushima. The NRC hasn't done or hasn't made public any analysis of the exposure to the public beyond 1 mile. This is another reason we need a site-specific analysis for a flooded and potentially breached spent fuel canister. The NRC has determined that such a breach is not credible, but won't define not credible. But we believe it's very credible and requires a revised emergency action plan. At the time to develop that plan is now, not once we have an emergency on our hands. Next slide, I'm talking about eventual critical or inadvertent criticality. No commercial reactor in the world has ever experienced this type event, but it did occur at a military reactor called SL1 in Idaho in 1961, resulting in immediate fatalities and land still uninhabitable today. In September 1965, I commenced my first day at Admiral Rickover's Navy Nuclear Power School. At the time, I hardly knew the difference between a neutron and a crouton. On this first day, we were all gathered to view a classified video on the Army's inadvertent criticality accident at SL-1 in Idaho. This accident produced a peak pressure of 10,000 pounds and resulted in 3 immediate fatalities and an unspecified number of latent deaths. The amount of contaminated land has never been published, to my knowledge. We all understood the message. This video can be readily viewed on Google or on Wikipedia. Our instructor that day reminded us, and I will never forget it, that we are not dealing with a cookie factory, but a dangerous system if not properly understood, maintained, and operated in accordance with approved procedures. The results can be catastrophic. Slide 13. Federal regulations for criteria, criticality, safety state and part, and I won't give you the number. Spent fuel handling package, transfer, and storage systems must be designed to be maintained subcritical for handling, packaging, transfer, and storage conditions, and in the nature of the immediate environment under accident conditions. This analysis has never been done. The only analysis that has been supplied to the public states that we guarantee it won't go critical as long as the water level is at 95%. If you remember the previous drawings, we don't know whether it's 95% of the fuel height, which I believe it is, or 95% of the canister height. But they're essentially acknowledging that if we have a ruptured canister, there is a possibility of a criticality. An inadvertent criticality is not credible for inland sites, but an unaddressed possibility at Onofre with unimaginable consequences. Once again, Edison fails to provide any realistic analysis of the event. As I mentioned before, Holtec states that criticality will not occur as long as the water in the canister level is less than 95%, whatever that means, but fails to discuss total flooding, inferring that total flooding may result in multiple criticalities. We don't know if this is the water level in the canister or the fuel that are significantly different. Holtec uses a proprietary material called Metamic to absorb neutrons and prevent criticality. We have no information on this material and its ability to remain functional at temperatures during the loss of cooling and other events that exceed the design limits. The required analysis must also consider the event and its consequences. I know I've said a lot in a few minutes, but now I'll be back later, but I'm going to thank you for listening and now return the presentation back to Mr. Langley. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Just to clarify something, if you don't know what the term criticality means, it just means it's a sustained nuclear reaction.
Well,
So,
a criticality is, yes, a sustained, uncontrolled nuclear reaction that the only thing that will stop it is when the fuel disintegrates and disperses. That will stop the criticality, and that's what stopped it at SL-1.